There are World Cup stories that live and die on the pitch, and then there are the ones that spill into politics, diplomacy, and international outrage before a single extra minute of stoppage time is even played. What happened to the United States men's national team in the summer of 2026 belongs firmly in that second category, and by the time the dust settled, the conversation was no longer just about soccer. It was about power, influence, and whether the biggest tournament on earth had just been quietly bent to fit the will of one man. To understand why people are now talking about a rematch, about fairness, about whether the result in Seattle should even count, you have to go back to a single moment in a group stage game against Bosnia and Herzegovina, because that is where all of this actually began. The incident itself looked, in real time, almost unremarkable. Folarin Balogun, the USMNT's most dangerous attacking weapon and the team's leading scorer through the tournament, became tangled with a Bosnian defender near midfield. His studs caught the opposing player's ankle. It was the kind of collision that happens dozens of times in a single match, two athletes moving at full speed with neither one fully in control of the outcome. The referee didn't blow for a card in the moment. It was only after a video review, minutes later, that the decision came down. Red card, automatic ejection, and under FIFA's disciplinary code, a mandatory one-match suspension for the next fixture. That next fixture happened to be the round of 16 against Belgium, arguably the most important game the United States had played in decades on home soil. In a tournament the country was co-hosting alongside Canada and Mexico, for most players, in most tournaments, that would have been the end of the story. A tough break, a debated call, a suspension served, and the team moves forward with whoever is next in line. But this call didn't stay contained to soccer message boards and sports talk shows. It reached the Oval Office. President Trump, by his own admission, picked up the phone and personally contacted FIFA President Gianni Infantino to ask for a review of the decision. He has been careful, in his public remarks since, to frame this as a request rather than an order. "All I did was ask for a review," he told reporters. "I didn't say, you have to do this." Whatever the precise nature of that phone call, the outcome that followed was almost unprecedented. FIFA had not overturned a red card suspension at a World Cup since 1962. And yet, on the Sunday before the Belgium match, FIFA announced that Balogun's ban would be suspended, clearing him to play. The reaction from outside the United States was swift, and it was not kind. The Belgian Federation called itself astonished, arguing the decision directly contradicted the tournament's own rules, and it filed an emergency appeal that FIFA rejected within hours. Belgium's head coach didn't hold back either, joking bitterly that he hadn't realized the 5th of July was actually April Fool's Day. A pointed way of saying the whole situation felt like a joke being played on the sport itself. UEFA went further still, stating publicly that FIFA had crossed a red line and put the integrity of the game itself at risk. Even outside the football world, political figures weighed in. The British Prime Minister's office was asked directly about it, and responded that decisions like these are a matter for the World Cup's governing body and should stay that way. A diplomatically worded but unmistakable signal of discomfort. Commentators across the political spectrum, including some who are generally sympathetic to the administration, described the optics as damaging, warning that any perception of a head of state bending a global sporting institution to his will was a dangerous precedent regardless of which country benefited. FIFA, for its part, tried to draw a firm line between the phone call and the decision. Infantino released a statement explaining that he had told the president during their conversation that the matter would be handled entirely by FIFA's independent judicial bodies, and that this was simply how the organization's disciplinary system worked. Whether that explanation satisfied anyone is a separate question. The timing alone, a call from the President of the United States followed within days by a suspension that hadn't happened in over 60 years, was enough to convince much of the footballing world that something outside normal procedure had taken place. Infantino, notably, has cultivated an unusually close relationship with Trump throughout the tournament, having awarded him FIFA's first ever Peace Prize the previous year. And critics were quick to point out that this friendship made the reversal look less like an independent legal process and more like a favor being repaid on the world's biggest stage. And then came the actual game, which, in a strange twist of fate, made the entire controversy feel almost pointless. Balogun took the field as planned, restored to full strength, presumably ready to deliver the kind of performance that would justify all the chaos that had unfolded to get him there. Instead, the United States collapsed. Belgium scored within the first 10 minutes, and although the Americans briefly equalized, Belgium answered almost immediately and never let go of the lead again. A costly error from the American goalkeeper handed Belgium a third goal in the second half, and by the time the final whistle blew, the scoreline read 4-1 in Belgium's favor. Balogun, the player at the center of the entire diplomatic incident, was held scoreless. If the intervention was meant to give the United States its best possible chance at victory, the result suggested it hadn't mattered at all, and in some ways that made the whole ordeal feel even more embarrassing, because the US had apparently spent its political capital on a game it lost anyway. Belgium wasn't shy about rubbing that in. In the 90th minute, after their fourth goal went in, several Belgian players performed a dance move that unmistakably mimicked one of Trump's signature rally gestures, a small act of mockery aimed squarely at the controversy hanging over the match. Belgium's official social media account posted a photo of the celebrating team, with a caption reading simply, "Overturn this," a direct jab at FIFA's decision and at the pressure that had produced it. It was cutting, it was viral within minutes, and it captured the mood of much of the footballing world far better than any official statement could have. Belgium's captain later said the controversy had only motivated his team further, that they had told each other they needed to respond on the field. And in the end, that response was as loud and thorough as it could possibly have been. In the days since, the story has only grown messier. Commentators have started talking about a so-called curse following the president whenever he inserts himself into sports, pointing to the loss as proof that political interference doesn't actually buy competitive success, only bad headlines. There has even been serious discussion, reported by multiple outlets, about whether the United States could face disqualification consequences down the line over the appearance of government interference in what is supposed to be an apolitical competition, since FIFA's own rules technically prohibit that kind of outside influence on match outcomes and disciplinary matters. Infantino himself is now facing calls from political figures abroad to resign over the decision, though given how FIFA's voting structure works, with strong backing from federations across Asia, Africa, and South America, that outcome currently looks unlikely. As for the president himself, his public position has remained fairly consistent, even as the criticism has piled up. He has continued to insist that the original red card was an overreaction, describing the collision as simply two athletes who got tangled up rather than a deliberate foul, and he has taken direct aim at the referee who made the call, questioning his credibility without offering specifics, a claim the Brazilian Soccer Federation quickly and firmly rejected in the official's defense. He has also argued that it would have been unfair, almost a stain on the tournament, for the US best player to be forced to sit out such an important game over what he considered a bad call in the first place. Whether people accept that reasoning or see it as an attempt to justify an inappropriate use of influence largely depends on which side of this entire episode they were already standing on before the whistle ever blew. So where does that leave the actual question hanging over all of this? The idea of a rematch, of somehow undoing a result that so many people already feel was tainted before it even started. There is no official process underway to replay this match, and FIFA has given no indication that it would even entertain the idea. Belgium has already moved on to face Spain in the quarter-finals, and the tournament continues without the United States, whose historic run, the best in decades for the program, ends here regardless of how anyone feels about how it got to this point. What remains is a genuinely uncomfortable question for the sport going forward, about how much room there should be for political power to reach into decisions that are supposed to be handled entirely inside the lines. Because whether or not this exact result is ever revisited, the precedent has already been set, and the next time a referee makes a controversial call at a tournament this big, everyone watching will remember exactly how easily, at least once, the rules seem to bend.